जो भी ਹੁੰਦਾ है वो हम करते हैं या फिर हम हवा विच ਐਵੇਂ ਹੀ उड़ते फिरते हैं यहाँ से वहाँ.
Well, when I saw the film, it was in the 90s when it first came out. And I remember really loving the film. In fact, I remember watching it repeatedly over a short period of time, 2 or 3 times. And it had a deep impact on me. It really touched my heart and I remember loving it. And I'd never imagined I would ever do a remake or an adaptation of it. And it happened quite by accident with my friend Atul Kulkarni, who's a colleague and actor. We've done a couple of films together. One night we were sitting and chatting about films and he said, "What's your favorite film?" And I said, "Well, one of them is Forrest Gump." And we spoke a little bit about it and then the night ended and I forgot all about it. About 2 weeks later, he calls up and says, "I have a script for you." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know you write." And he said, "No, I'm not a writer. This is the first time I'm giving it a shot." And so I said, "What have you written?" And he said, "I've written an Indian adaptation of Forrest Gump, the film we were speaking about 2 weeks ago." So I kind of laughed because Forrest Gump is such an iconic film. It's such a classic and it's so deeply, entrenched in American culture. It was difficult for me to imagine as an Indian film. So I didn't take him seriously until I finally actually heard his narration. And when I heard his narration, it just took me by surprise and I was so moved by it. I was so fascinated how almost effortlessly he managed to, place the film in an Indian environment and how everything came so naturally. It felt like I was listening to an Indian story. And that is when I decided that yes, I want to do this. So it was at which point I would have probably seen Forrest Gump a good 20 or 25 years earlier when it had first come out. So I hadn't seen the film for a long time. So when I heard the adaptation, I just fell in love with it. It really pulled me, attracted me very strongly, and I felt I need to do this. And that's when the journey for trying to get the rights began. It took us about 8 years to get the rights. Well, in terms of the physicality of the film, we've used VFX a lot for the de-aging and to look younger. And the tough thing for me really was to get into the head of an 18-year-old. So my character is seen at different ages when he's 18, 20, 25, 30, and right up to the late 40s. And I'm in my 50s, and so to get into the head of a character, to try and wipe out all the experiences I have had and all the baggage I've collected as a human being along the way, try and get rid of it and unlearn everything. So try and just be simple and pure and try and bring the innocence of youth back. And that was something that was my biggest challenge, I think. Yeah. Well, it's an extremely demanding film, I think, for all departments, because it's set in different decades. And so whether it's the costumes or the production design, you have to keep accurate through each decade. And so there's a lot of prep that went into the film. There were some difficult war sequences we shot at 13,500 feet altitude where there's very little oxygen. So it's and right in the middle of the shoot, when we were halfway, we were struck with COVID and we had to stop shooting. Then we had a long gap of, I think, 8 months it was, and then we started shooting again. We shot for a few weeks and then we had to shut down again because there was a second wave. And so kind of the rest of the film, we just made as well as we could, not in the ideal conditions, because all of us were, grappling with the realities of COVID. So it was a tough shoot, I think. It was a tough shoot, but I'm glad it's done, and I'm looking forward to the reaction of the audience all across. Well, I think that Laal Singh Chaddha is a very life-affirming film. It has a lot of positivity. The character is very inspiring. The character kind of inspires you to try and want to be a little like him, and I think that's the wonderful thing about the story and the character. And like when I watch the film, I want to be a little like Forrest, or I want to be a little more like Laal. That's the quality this has. Yeah.
जो भी ਹੁੰਦਾ है वो हम करते हैं या फिर हम हवा विच ਐਵੇਂ ਹੀ उड़ते फिरते हैं यहाँ से वहाँ.